How many of you all have Facebook installed on the smartphone of yours? Okay, most people. WhatsApp? More than Facebook from the look of things. What about Twitter? Okay. Instagram? That is surprising. A lot of people have Instagram. What about Snapchat? Okay, what are your ages? Okay. How many of y'all have clicked more than 50 selfies in 2015? Okay, there are people who have clicked more than 50. Just meet me later. I need to understand how that works. Okay. How many of y'all have clicked at least one selfie in 2015? Okay, got it. So I just do this so that I get a sense of the audience. There's a quick introduction of me. I am a co-founder of an agency called Social Wavelength. We are a team of 160 people over 3 cities in India, and we help large businesses use social media to achieve their business goals. That's what we do. We recently got acquired by a larger company called WPP, which is the largest communication services company in the world. That's just a external kind of market validation that not that we needed that validation, but to a lot of people that was validation that what we were doing was actually creating real value for organizations. My Twitter handle is KarkareMTG. That's KarkareMTG. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about, the first 2 things I want to talk about was I want to talk about 2 organizations which have used this phenomena of changes in technology and changes in users' behaviors to achieve great success. Okay, so the first organization I want to talk about, this was a wine shop. Okay, so it's not in the adventure tourism space, but it's in the broader kind of lifestyle category. It was a wine shop. It was a wine shop called Wine Library. Okay, and this was in New York. And what Wine Library was doing was, it was just like the wine shop many of us go every Saturday. It was like that. And one of the people who was running the wine shop, I think the owner's son or someone like that, he saw that wine as a category is defined by a few things. It's a niche category. It's not like beer, which everybody in the US drinks. And there's a lot of passion in that category. A lot of people are very, very passionate about wine. But when it comes to expertise in wine experts, they are very, highbrow, stiff upper lip. They cater to a certain audience only. They'll be wearing like a tuxedo type of people. Okay, very boring people. So what this guy thought was that the consumers are very passionate. But they are being underserved in this category when it came to content. So what he did was, he started an online video show called Wine Library TV. This guy's name was Gary Vaynerchuk. Okay, he started from nowhere. He basically had a wine shop. Okay, he was not like a celebrity or a media personality. He started a online video show called Wine Library TV, and what he did was, from 2006 to around 2011 or 12, every week he put out 2 or 3 new episodes of Wine Library TV. I had an episode that I had to show, but essentially what he did in that video was, he tasted 2 or 3 wines that were from his selection, and he used to review those wines. He used to talk about how good or bad or okay those wines were.
You can do this on video with a camera.
This is technology. This is amazing. Okay, so this is Gary Vaynerchuk. Can we do that? Yeah. There we go. Okay. Yeah. That is some ingenious thinking. Okay, so this is that guy, and I'm going to play a video of his just to give you a flavor. So he's literally like, I'm emphasizing this point just to, I wanted to not, a lot of times social media and these big campaigns seem like things that large organizations do. So I just want to make it clear, this guy is a wine shop owner who started this out because he realized that this is a trend he could capitalize on. Okay, let's see if this video plays.
Gary Vaynerchuk. Say it with me, Vaniacs. And this, my friends, is The Thunder Show, a.k.a. the internet's most passionate wine program. I'm going to tell you right now, without a doubt in my mind, this is going to be one of the best shows of all time. And I'm going to tell you why, Mod. We have not been like this in a while. I mean, not stressed, not rushed, not...
I'm just going to move forward to where he actually talks about wine.
US dollars. Now, Giganos became an AOC, an appellation recognized by the government in 1971. And so, you know, it's just a, little fun fact. I know a lot of people like that. I'm trying to step up a little bit on the education, little fun facts like that. I've got so many people emailing me that they're watching the show and they're studying for their certification, their master sommelier and all that stuff. And so I figure anytime I can throw a little knowledge thunder, it's not going to hurt anybody. 14.5 alcohol content, good red color, and that's what you always like to see. I see like smashing some cherries in with your foot. That's what they do in the old country, Mott. Say it with me. Let's give this a snippy sniff. Pretty nose, 20 bones, still very well priced against 90 points Josh Reynolds, who does the Rhone for Stephen Tanzer, a very good critic that I have a lot of respect for. Gorgeous cherries, gorgeous, little rusty in your DNA, it's in your heart. So that's what's going. Nice fruit, nice deliciousness. Great viscosity. I get a very dark chocolate.
Okay, so this is like episode 83 or something like that. He did 1,000 episodes of this over 5 or 6 years. Okay, he did 1,000 episodes. You can clearly see he knows his subject very, very well. He's super passionate about it. He's just like you and me, and he did 1,000 episodes of this because he knew that this was a market that needed to be served. And for the first time, if this was 10 years back, I mean, where would he get like cameras from, hosting for the videos online, right? Obviously, that problem doesn't exist now. Didn't exist in 2006. There's YouTube and all of these sites which will give you video hosting for free. Everybody of us has a very, very high resolution camera. So this is all super possible for us to do right now, right? I'll tell you what he achieved out of all this, okay? So I'm going to turn this back to myself. What he achieved out of all this is that, okay, there's one, okay, I forgot about one really important thing that he did. He ensured that every single conversation that was happening anywhere on the social web in those days, which was about wine, he was present in that conversation. Okay, every single conversation, people talking about wine on Twitter, on some forum, on some blog, people talking about wine or anything related to wine pairings, which food goes with which wine, all of that. He used to ensure that he was present in those conversations, answering people's questions, being helpful, all of that. Okay, there is no transaction element at all in this yet. So he's not yet asking people to buy from him. Okay, he's just being helpful and being an expert about wine. Now, what did that lead to? So over the course of these 5 years, he became a sensation because of what he was doing. So he has 1 million followers on Twitter. He started out just like a normal person. He has 1 million followers on Twitter. He's written 3 books about all these things that he's done. And most importantly, which obviously for all of us is very, very important, is that he's built the wine business that he had. It used to be a $3 million a year business. He's made that a $60 million a year business, okay, from 2006 to 2011 when the numbers are there. Why? Because of the way he intelligently used media to get word about himself and his organization out there. Okay, so that's the first case study I want to talk about, which was Gary Vaynerchuk. This is a case study which, again, this is a guy who started out small and had a home run. It was a massive, massive success, right? So that's the first one. Then there's another one. I don't have a video for this one because I specifically chose one called Cambridge Lane. Cambridge Lane is, again, it's a business which is using social media now. And there's tons of case studies like this that all of us know. But I took Cambridge Lane specifically because of the way Cambridge Lane is a company that makes quilts. So quilts, I confess I don't know what quilts are used for, but it's some sort of, like, women use it, I think. But anyway, so quilts are something that this company makes. And what the lady who runs this business does is that every single quilt that she creates, this is a small business, this is a single woman operation. Every single quilt that she creates, she puts up on social media. And she uses some of the things that social media gives her, which no other medium does, in order to promote those quilts. So she uses the ability to target people with advertising about those quilts. And she's able to target them so specifically, and I'll talk about that a little bit as we move forward. She uses social media to target those people so specifically that if she wants that quilt image to be seen by a 28-year-old woman living in a specific area who also likes things like sewing and quilting and knitting, then only that woman will see it. Okay, so there's a lot of very granular targeting that is possible using social media. So that's the thing that she's been doing. Again, what she's been able to do in terms of success hasn't been like Gary Vaynerchuk, where he's gone and built. He's had a home run where he's gone from a $3 million business to a $60 million business. But what she's done is she's ensured that social media marketing and social media advertising is something that has become one of her primary sources of revenue. Okay, so this specific reason why I chose this particular case study, and I'll definitely share the presentation with the organizers so they can pass it around to everybody. The specific reason that I chose this case study is because, just to say that, you know, a lot of times when people talk about social media, it's either, you know, all these home runs and people who've made it really, really big, but that's not the only thing that it does. It's finally, at the end of the day, it is something that you can use to build all of your businesses, right? Okay, so there are some thought starters and some action starters that I want to get into. Okay, so let me just get right to it. Okay, so what are some thought starters? The first thought starter is a take on the E equals MC square equation, but what we say is we say EC equals MC. So what is EC equals MC? And this is, I think, the first thing that if you want to succeed on social media, all of you need to think of is EC equals MC stands for every company is a media company. Okay, you all may be doing adventure tourism in order to earn money and in order to run a business, but you need to start thinking as if you all are a media company. So what do I mean by thinking you all are a media company? Imagine if imagine if Arnab Goswami sends a video crew to shoot some footage, and that's not the best footage that he finds. He will not use it. You know, he will figure out a way that it gets repurposed into a format that will be run on his 24/7 TV channel over and over and over again. I'm not saying use the same content over and over again. I'm saying think like a media company, think like an organization that is so. And especially in the category that you guys are, there are so many opportunities for creating content that people would like to consume and like to share. So the only thing is that until and unless you're thinking like a media company, like your primary job is to create engaging content, you're not going to do it because obviously you have a business to run, right? So that's the first thought starter that I have. Every company is a media company. That's how you need to start behaving. The second thought starter that I have is consumers. Like I said, the consumer behavior right now is that they are talking about their passion, they're talking about their interest, they're talking about their activities on social media. So this could be Twitter, Facebook, whatever. The second thought starter, very importantly, is you need to allocate time from your schedules to be part of these conversations. Okay, you can't ignore the fact that these conversations are happening. These conversations could be happening on Twitter, they could be happening on something like a TripAdvisor, they could be happening on any of these platforms. One way to look at them is to say, okay, there is something that's happening, it's having an impact on the business, but there's nothing that I can do. Now, the reality of the matter, the truth of the matter is that as business owners and as people who are on the lookout for new consumers, there is something you can do, which is to participate in those conversations. Those conversations will continue to happen irrespective of whether you're part of them or not. But if you are part of them, then you can shape them and you can drive those people to your business. So that's the second important thought starter. The third important thought starter, so even these were difficult to communicate without the screen, but the third one is going to be quite difficult. This again, we should figure out a way of connecting offline. But this is the part where I'm going to talk about, when you look at a platform like Facebook, and I'm going to focus specifically on Facebook because it's an interesting place to get started given the size of the audience, and especially given the fact that there is a way to target people very, very granularly on Facebook. So what Facebook allows is, Facebook allows you to run ads on its platform. So when people open up their Facebook on their mobile phones, you can put messages in their newsfeed, which are messages about your business. Now, the interesting thing about this is, so there's a lot of places where you could do ads before, but the interesting thing about advertising on Facebook is the kind of targeting options that it allows you. So what are some of the targeting options it allows you? One is obviously location. So where in the country is that person, which is an important one. But it allows you to target on the basis of interests. So it allows you to target on the basis of whether that person has himself declared that he is interested in trekking or skydiving or whitewater rafting or what have you. So on the basis of what a person has declared as an interest, you are able to show a specific message to him. Which means if you had a skydiving company and you say, okay, we want to expand our base and there are more people who've done paragliding, you could specifically show them a communication which said, done paragliding, now why don't you try skydiving? So you could show that specific message to someone who's paraglided before. The other things you could do, for example, obviously is demographic, age, sex, all of those things. You can also do behavior. So you can do online behavior. You can do things like who is someone who has browsed the internet in a specific fashion over the course of or browsed Facebook in a specific fashion over the course of the last 1 month. So there's a lot of interesting ways that Facebook allows you to target consumers to get them back. One of the things that KK mentioned about remarketing, what you can do on Facebook now is if somebody has visited your website before, you can show him a specific advertisement on Facebook which says, hey, you visited us on our website, why don't you sign up for XYZ? Okay, so what Facebook allows, and it's all of this that it allows is self-serve, which means anyone with a credit card can run these ads. It's not rocket science. It's very, very easy to run these. But the whole idea is that the thought starter is that the specific thought starter rather is that with 2,000 rupees a month, what can you do? I'm not even saying 10,000. I'm saying 2,000 rupees a month is all it takes to get started and to actually start observing patterns. So you'll know what is working, what is not working, and you can decide how to increase your spends on that particular platform. So these were 3 thought starters, and there were a few action starters which I was hoping that all of you could go and start thinking about as soon as the session is over, start doing. So the first action starter is to define your objectives on digital and social media. So whenever you want to reach a specific place, it's good to have that very, very well defined. So what are you trying to use digital and social media for? In a lot of SMBs, obviously, the first thing any marketing outlay has to give you real business return on investment. So the first thing could be sales, which is fine. But is it also brand building? Is it also customer service? Is it also triggering word of mouth? So whatever is your specific objective using a particular channel, that's the first thing that you need to define. Now, I'm calling this an action starter because literally you could write it if you have something right now. So there is an action that you can take right away. If you have this defined, then is the only time you can have the other stuff becoming successful for you. The second thing to do is to audit where you currently are. So for example, KK mentioned, do you have a website? Is it a responsive website? Are you already present on any social media? So a lot of times people start off by creating a individual account on a Facebook, but name it their company's name. So audit your current presence. So where are you right now? And how is that going to help you reach your objective? So the second step for everybody is to audit your current presence. And this is again, like I'm saying, this is something that you can do right now. The third thing is to start so the third thing comes under the umbrella of developer content strategy, but the specific action starters are, one is discover the content you already possess. So it's very, very easy for all of us to go back and inventory what is the content that you already have. The last expedition that you went on, the last camping trip you all did. What is the content that got generated from those trips, right? So those are the things that it's very easy to audit this. Now, for a moment while doing this, it's very important for us to think that while you are the expert in that field, the consumer is not an expert. Okay, the consumer is coming to you because you are an expert. So what may for you be run of the mill, or what may for you be, oh, this is not interesting, may not be the same for the consumer. So when you're looking at auditing your current content bank, there is a very strong likelihood that you already have a significant content bank specifically in this category. And the second thought starter in the content, the content heading is to create findable and shareable content. Okay, so there's two things now. Before social media became the force that it is, it was all about content being searchable, which means search engine optimized and so on and so forth. But there's an element to it now which is about shareability. So what is it in your content that can entice a person to share it? Okay, so here, I mean, the maxim is that people share stuff on Facebook not because they like your content, it's because they like their friends. So you have to make something shareable, and people will share it only if they feel they're adding value to the friends who are going to see it. The fourth thought starter is to ensure multiple touch points with every user. So what that means is that again, in the scenario that we are in today, people are going to interact with you across different mediums. So today someone may tweet to you, tomorrow he may write you an email, the day after he could post a comment on your Facebook page or fill up a form on your website. So people are going to reach out to you on different platforms. You are going to reach out to people on different platforms. Now the important thing to do is to have a place where you are creating a full view of your customer. Where do you know that XYZ Twitter user is the same as this guy who sent you an email, is the same as this guy who wrote to you on your website, right? So there has to be some mechanism that you have of creating a unified customer view. If you have a unified customer view, then your communication to that customer across channels is going to be more efficient. There is a lot of ways to do this. There's some very simple, I don't know how much is the penetration of CRM in the industry, but there are very simple CRMs that are available that allow you to do a lot of these things. So the next thing is to ensure multiple touch points and the fact that those touch points are coordinated with each other. What I mentioned about, the next point is what I mentioned about Gary Vaynerchuk. The thing he did really well, involve yourself in conversation. Okay, so there are conversations definitely in this category that are happening online all the time. People talking about planning trips, people talking about going somewhere. Now, if you can add, and this is what we've seen with our experience, if you as a brand or an organization can add value to that conversation, the customer is okay with you joining the conversation uncalled for. If you're not going to add value and you're going to just post messages saying, buy from me or something like that, that's not going to work. But if you can add value to the conversation, the customer will welcome it. So that's the fifth thought starter. And the sixth thought starter is that we saw a sales funnel previously. So there is something called as a path to purchase. So path to purchase, the way we look at it is 7 stages of a customer's journey of engagement with you. So there is awareness that I need something or I want something. There is involvement. So let me find out about XYZ thing. So let me find out about all the options that are available. Then there is active consideration. Okay, I've shortlisted 2 or 3 options. Now let me make a decision to purchase. Then is the actual purchase that happens. So this is where he actually consumes. Now this purchase phase is actually in the center of this path to purchase. The path to purchase doesn't end with purchase. Purchase is the center. There were 3 phases on this side and there's 3 phases on the other side. What's the 3 phases? One is the first phase after purchase is consumption. So he's actually involved in that product. He's consuming that product in some fashion. The second stage after purchase is relationship building. So once he consumes the product or continues to consume the product, he's building a relationship with you as a brand or as an organization. And the third phase, which is the third phase after purchase is what is advocacy. So he's going to tell people, until and unless he experiences your product, he doesn't tell people. So he's going to tell people either good or bad things about your product. So there's a 7-stage path to purchase. And obviously, when I speak to others about my experience, that is leading to that person's first, second, or third phase before purchase, right? So it's something that goes on and on. So the sixth, action is to decide which path of the path to purchase you want to reach consumers. And believe me, the way that digital and social media is shaped up, in every single part of the path to purchase, there is a way to reach. There is a way to reach using either advertising or other organic methods those specific people in that path, in that part of the path to purchase. So those were my six starters, action starters. Very quickly, we'll just do one more of the video thing. We had done a campaign for a particular client of ours. It was in the travel space. This is a tourism board of Victoria, which is a state in Australia. And what we did in this case was they wanted people to know they wanted Victoria, or rather Melbourne, to be one of the things people consider when they think about traveling abroad. So if you're thinking about, if I'm a traveler thinking about, should I go to Paris or should I go to Rome, I should also think about Melbourne. So that's what they wanted. And they had a very specific customer profile that they wanted to reach out to. So what we did in this case is that we took 2 comedians, Indian comedians, and we sent them to Melbourne, and we sent a video crew with them to Melbourne. And what we did is we took them to different highlights of Melbourne, and we shot videos with them. And those are the videos that we put out online, so that, and the important thing is we used their existing reach. So these were people who had thousands and thousands of followers on Twitter and Facebook, and we used their reach to promote these places. So let me just quickly show you that.
Right, it's Dhoni at the crease, Tanmay, and only 4 runs stand between India and a historic World Cup.
Come on.
Are they going to do this? The bowler's coming in to bowl, and and Dhoni's hit it, and it's a 6.
Yes!
It's a huge 6. India have won the World Cup again. You know, this is probably going to be more fun at the 2015 World Cup finals that are happening right here at the MCG. Lovely place, though.
Can we do it once? Just once.
We're Indian spectators.
Yeah.
We have to. On 3?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Sachin!
MCG में आया भूत.
No, cut.
Okay, so what we did was we created. Now think of this. These are people who typically advertise in movie theaters. They advertise on TV channels. I mean, they still do that, but they realize that there are people who would want to consume their content on a platform like YouTube, but the content had to be the type of content that works on this platform, right? Which is why they went by this method. And over a course of, just to think of how to think about content, over a course of the 7-day trip, they created 22 films. This was the intro film, so it was short, but they created 22 films, and they put it out on YouTube for the YouTube audience to consume. So just to think of how a tourism company is thinking of themselves like a media company. Thanks, that's about it. Sorry about the presentation.